So here we are. We finally made it to the 250 plus mile mark for the Nike Air Zoom Alphafly. One of the most controversial, probably the second most controversial Nike racing shoe on the market. But that being said, let's talk about what's good, what's bad, what I like, and whether I can still run in this. Let's get into it. So what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Filip Latocha, and as you can guess by the title and the intro, we are talking about my Nike Air Zoom Alphafly after 250 plus miles, and I've got some thoughts about it. But before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're ready to subscribe to this channel, watching the content, thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Definitely follow me on Strava. Definitely follow me on Instagram as I do begin the final tapering and basically my progress into the Houston Hot Chocolate 15K race. And that's going to be really cool, and it's going to be really fun to watch and kind of just get into that. So, and if you're racing, of course, comment down below, sound off. Hopefully I see you at the race. So, let's just start off traditionally with what I do on this shoe. That's kind of just show you the outsole, bottoms, rubber, all that good jazz. So, here we go. Full scope shot. As you can see, that is the left foot in addition to the heel. Right foot in addition to the heel. And we'll just start off with, of course, the elephant in the room, and that is the Air Zoom pocket on the right side of the shoe. So, I guess a little history before we get into this one. So I bought this shoe late 2020, actually a little bit after I bought the Tempo Next Percent. And I don't recall if I bought this before my Chicago Marathon attempt or after. I think it was a little bit after, because I would have just opted into using this instead. But basically, I had a Vaporfly Next Percent in this similar color scheme, and I ended up buying this because I really enjoyed the Tempo Next Percent. And when I was running in this, I definitely felt a lot different in the sense that, I felt like I was floating a little bit more. There's a lot more of a responsiveness to the carbon plate with the Air Zoom pockets, and it just felt like, a dream running in this shoe. And it was an honor and a privilege, as someone once mentioned in the comments, and that is correct. Lacing this thing up on a daily basis or whenever you're using it is truly an honor and a privilege. And it should always be respected no matter what you do with this shoe, whether it's a race day, a training session, you name it. So, that being said, at 250 plus miles, the damage is quite been done here in my left foot. But here's the caveat, is that I've not popped the Air Zoom pocket. So what does that mean for the life of this shoe? Well, I guess you can probably take a guess that this shoe has slowly, weaned itself out of my race shoe lineup. And I think the last time I raced with this particular shoe was back in June of 2021 during the River Grove 5K that I won in this shoe. And since then, I've been using it for training sessions. I've been kind of just easing into more daily trainers for that period of time, whether it was like the Mach 4, whether it was the New Balance 1080 version 11. Those are the shoes I started using a little bit more than the Nike branded materials. And that's okay. You don't have to race, you don't have to daily train in a racing shoe every day because, one, that's quite expensive, and two, that carbon plate's going to really beat up your ankles and your peroneal tendons quite severely, as I can tell you from personal experience. And with this shoe, there was only one major con, I guess we'll just start off with, in terms of running, was that yes, the peroneal tendon does flare up because of how little support there is in the shoe in the ankle area. That's one spot that kind of has a weak point, and I'll tell you that for a fact. Like when you're hitting the ground and you have that slight supination, this ankle stability is not great. And that is ultimately really, I guess we have to come out and say it, right? The Alphafly is the reason I broke my fibula in the first place. Not this particular pair, this was the white pair that I have here. And it was mainly because, again, it's not that I'm tying the shoe incorrectly. The issue with it is that there's just such little material and such little stability up here on top. And even with this heel guard having as much, I guess, glue or wax or whatever is on this thing, it's still not stable enough to hold all this, ZoomX foam in the shoe. That's basically just so unstable that whenever you take a step, it's hard to have that stability to land with your foot straight. And that's really the problem with the Alphafly in, I guess, the long-term sense, is that as opposed to, I guess, the Vaporfly Next Percent, which doesn't nearly have as much foam and is a little bit more structurally organized just to be streamlined, this one has the challenge of having the Air Zoom pocket area, which even despite like this arch formation, which I guess, you know, it may or may not have a factor to it, and even having the pads down here in the heel being a little bit wider, it's still not very stable, despite the fact that, well, yeah, it is ZoomX foam, it's not going to be stable, and that there's a carbon plate running across the entire shoe, which you would think would help. But there's probably my second con to it, which is probably the structural piece that's really breaking the camel's back on that one, and that is the inside of the midfoot area. Because of how, I guess, arched it is, I'm already forgetting all the words I want to use for it. It's like your foot is basically actually protruding into this area here if you have slightly flat feet, and that's going to cause a real big problem when you're running, because you're losing a little bit of power with potentially this flat foot pronation, and you're also sort of creating like a cramp in your foot, and it's really just, you're losing a little bit of that power if you're not doing this forefoot to more midfoot strike with this shoe, rather than having like a flat drop with a slight, you know, pronation. So that's kind of one of the other issues with the Alphafly, is this particular area too. I don't know if the design is just thinner here, or the shoe itself is designed for a more professional grade athlete foot that has been trained more on the track, has a little bit more barefoot experience, and the foot is just stronger overall than somebody who's been, you know, training in shoes all their life and has maybe not nearly as powerful tendons in the foot as somebody who's training barefoot. And that could be a partial issue as to why the Alphafly has these pain points and these cramp points in the shoe itself. So from the exterior end of the shoe, however, this one's not too bad. You can see where my toe box area is starting to fall apart in this area right here. You can see that there's a little bit of fatigue in the ZoomX foam, basically just all across the heel and every part of the shoe. It's like, okay, whatever. The foam fatigue is not bad if you take some breaks from it. In the long run, though, we'll kind of see how that plays out. Same thing in the forefoot, you know, with the foam fatigue is there by the Air Zoom pockets. That has been my strike point for this shoe all across the board. I think this is the side where, yeah, I've like straight up ripped it here by my pinky toe. And there's a very minor rip here near the heel, which is interesting. I didn't expect that. But again, you know, that's kind of what's rolling with this, you know, hybrid mesh upper that's been treated differently than a lot of other uppers that Nike puts out in their shoes. So, yeah, I didn't mean to grill this shoe nearly as bad as I thought it would, but all things considered, if I broke my fibula running in this style shoe, not this particular one, you would think I'd have a little bit of a gripe with it, because it did put me out for like 6 to 8 weeks, so whatever though. But okay, final thoughts with the Alphafly Next Percent. I'll tell you this much. At this point in time, I really do still like this shoe. However, I am a bit at a bit of a crossroad in terms of the future of my race shoe. As much as I like the Alphafly, I think it's important for me to take a step back and kind of remember when I was running my best times, some of my training programs in that process, as well as what shoes I was using in that time. So when I was hitting some of my best times, I was using the Vaporfly Next Percent 1. And as you guys probably have seen before, just recently, I've purchased the Next Percent 2, and that's what I'm going to be racing with in Houston. I'll get more into that when I make the comparison videos between the two shoes as to why that's happening. But the point is, this is such a unique shoe that it takes a very specific runner to maximize the efforts of this shoe. And at this point in time, I would say I don't know if I'm able to race in this and experience the best performance out of it, only because I'm, again, coming out of injury, and I want to be in a little bit more of a cardiovascular prime before I start pounding pavement in this. Because, again, when you run in this shoe, and this is one of the major pros with it, is like, once you're running, you know that this is the shoe that's built for road running. But the shoe is really going to drag you along if you let it. And I let myself go free when I run. And that's probably one of my stronger traits with running, is that, yeah, if I start picking up some good paces, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to try to control myself. If I end up doing positive splits while I'm running, it's because I'm having a good time. Then that's kind of a problem from an emotional runner standpoint. But I guess from the point here is that you want to feel like you have the right cardiovascular, maybe like the right VO2 max, or at least perceived VO2 max when you're running with something like this, because you do want to be ready to take this thing on. Because again, tying this thing up is you know, every single day for a run is a privilege, and you want to be able to put in your best efforts when you run in this thing. And at this current moment, when I'm still recovering from injury, which I am at about 100% recovered, but I need to rebuild all that cardiovascular baseline again, I don't think the Alphafly is the right shoe for me to race in at this time. If we do some daily runs in like this particular pair, by all means, that's not a problem, because the shoe itself is not going to race. It's just going to slowly live out its last coming days, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So that being said, I'm going to leave this review here. So if you agree or disagree with the assessment of this Alphafly, definitely sound off in the comments below. If you've got a cool story with your Alphafly as well that has you kind of in a similar experience where it's either injured you or brought you to new heights and it's just hard to get back to that point, I don't know, just leave me in the comments below. Tell me a cool story. I'm all ears. I like listening to what you guys have to say. So I'm going to leave the video here. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.